Hello everyone, and thank you for having me here. I would like to talk to you today about advertising and how it's been improving over the past couple of years. So, who here likes it? Chances are when you hear advertising, your brain begins to turn off. So before I lose you, let's shed some light on how advertising has been improving. I have a short video here which is going to point out the differences between regular advertising and targeted advertising. So please bear with me while I set up the video.
Consumers have different lifestyles, which means the things they buy and why they buy them are different. So why do they all see the same TV ads? TV advertising used to be pretty straightforward. A single media buy could give you access to a huge part of the population. Unfortunately, things aren't that simple anymore. More channels, more devices, more fragmentation. Today's audiences are a lot harder to pin down. No surprise then that many marketers are turning to online advertising. Online, it's relatively easy to target specific audiences, tailor ads to make them more relevant, and to measure their performance.
Alright, so as the clip suggested, there is an advantage to advertising online. Namely, it's easier to target your needs. So that means that the advertising that you're seeing is more meaningful to you, and that is also benefiting the advertisers. So, is that a good thing, or could this also be a bad thing? And what does that mean for us down the road? So I have some examples set up here. I'm going to be talking about how targeted advertising has been improving the Google search algorithm, and how targeted advertising has been making services like Google and YouTube free. And I'm also going to be talking about the dangers of exposing yourself online, and how targeted advertising might actually be making things less convenient for you. I also want to talk about two trends which are popping up that are also incorporating targeted advertising. So first, let's talk about how it could be a good thing. So the first benefit is improved service over time. So the best example of this is Google, which is probably the most famous user of targeted online advertising. So we all have used Google, but who remembers their competitors? There used to be about a dozen search engines back in the day, but how Google stood out from its competitors is that they invented Google AdWords, which allows companies to pay Google to append keywords to their links to make it more relevant, which is sort of like the first form of targeted advertising online. So how does this apply to you? Well, with the new and improved Google search algorithm, Google is taking into consideration every search you have ever made. That means that your Google works better for you than it would work for other people. So an example that I like to use is if you Google search the word league. So generally you would find the unit of measurement, league. It's a measurement of distance. But if you were into Major League Baseball, you might if you were into baseball, you might find Major League Baseball. Whereas for me, I actually find a gaming advertisement first because I'm an avid gamer. So these advertisements that you see are actually what makes up the majority of the income of Google and YouTube, because companies are willing to pay for this improved advertising. And it's because of all this ad revenue that Google and YouTube are able to be made free, which brings us to the second benefit, which is online services are being made free, and there's new business models that are being made viable. So, because of all this improved advertising, there's been like a storm of new ways to advertise online. And they all use the same sort of criteria that the Google search algorithm uses. So a popular criteria would be your location. So if you lived in BC and you were on YouTube during the BC election, you may have seen a couple of Adrian Dix's advertisements before you had to watch your video. So it's not just big corporations that are benefiting from all this ad revenue. Now individuals can actually benefit themselves through YouTube's partnership program. So what you have here is actually a group of friends and one person who are actually benefiting more from YouTube than the entire of American movies and YouTube itself, which I find very interesting. So let's actually go ahead and talk about how advertising can be a bad thing. So the first drawback is that information collection is very aggressive, and Google is indexing all of your searches, and it's not just Google. So this is a scary thought because no one really knows what sort of information these big companies are receiving from them. And there's always that fear that an embarrassing search you may have made is going to come back and haunt you later. So how some companies actually acquire this information is by installing tracking hardware into your computer. So you might be thinking that's not possible or it's not legal, but you may have actually been agreeing to install this software on your computer when you sign an end-user license agreement. So this is an actual EULA for EA's Origin, which is a platform to buy and play video games on your computer. So what this actually says is that you have agreed to transmit technical and related information that identifies your computer, your operating system, and your application usage, means what you're doing on your computer. So you have to be careful what you sign. So contrary to what I said before, let's talk about how, depending on how you use the internet, things might be being made less convenient for you. That is the second drawback, keyword pollution. So this happens when you make a bunch of frequent one-time searches, and what that does is you've convinced websites that that one-time search you made is the only thing that you're interested in. So as an example, if you were to purchase a Harry Potter book from eBay or Amazon, you've now convinced eBay or Amazon that that is your only interest, and you're going to be seeing a lot of ads for Harry Potter. So what this does is it creates a period of awkward inconvenience when you're trying to use new services. So I want to skip ahead and let's talk about the future. So the first trend I want to talk about, which is happening now, is geolocation. And the idea is very simple. There are services which function based on your location, sort of like GPS. They provide services to your mobile phone, and it's where all technology is starting to go. So there are a lot of services that use geolocation right now. So an example of which would be Foursquare, which allows you to share with your friends about where you are, and big companies can advertise themselves on Foursquare, put themselves up on the map, and you can sort of talk about where you've gone. So the idea is that in the future, on a slow business day, store owners could let passerbys know about a deal that they came up with just then to increase their traffic for that day, and you would be able to do the purchasing in the palm of your hand. So on the subject of shopping, consumer identity, setting up your identity as a consumer. So the idea, it's sort of like the same trend as on Facebook and Twitter, where you can set up profiles about what information you want your friends to see. So instead of big companies searching for a criteria about you, you would send that criteria to them. You would set up what criteria about things that you want to have sent to you, and what that would end up doing is, because everyone has sort of like this different criteria, companies would have to stop having this mass appeal strategy and start having to convince people as individuals, which would create sort of mini competitions per person, which I think is very interesting. So, in conclusion, targeted advertising is sort of a mixed bag. At this point, it's hard to tell if it's a good thing or a bad thing. So at the moment, we're able to benefit from services like Google and Facebook, and they are improving every day, and we're able to benefit from them for free. The drawback is that there's some shady practices being done, and we have to be careful about what we're signing. And that at the moment, it could be sloppy and imprecise to use some. It can be very annoying to receive certain advertisements on new services. But there is room to expand. Technology is moving towards the mobile industry, and in the future, we could be doing all the shopping out of the palm of our hands. Thank you very much. I hope you found this interesting.